Anyway, so as you pop on here, say, hey, tell me where you're tuning in from. If you've never seen this before, you're wondering, who is this woman with all these shiny packages of paint behind her? My name is Amy Howard, and I am located here in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. And I am excited today to teach you something that I've never taught my students before. And it is going to be, I think it's a go-to finish. It's something for decorative artists. It's something for professionals. Or if you're a DIYer, it's something that you're going to be able to do. My goal in teaching you is, one, to make the products that I develop to be more real. The other thing is, I love teaching you because I know, as a woman, I know the importance of my home. And I know how, when my home is beautiful, when I feel really good about my home and the things that I'm doing, and that I'm not spending a fortune on it, the more excited I am about it. All right, so today, what we're titling today is actually, it's an Italian chippy finish, but it's all from the inspiration from our trip to New Orleans last week. I will tell you, we saw a ton of fabulous finishes. You'll see a reel that I posted on Instagram and Facebook that showed you all the different finishes that we were seeing. And do I still buy antiques? 100% I do. I collect antiques and art. I still do that. But I also love rescuing and restoring them, because, be quite honest with you, a lot of times, a lot of the antiques are just simply not affordable. They have just gone through the roof. And so I love being able to take pieces of furniture that have good lines to them and be able to create beautiful finishes on them. So I've got my iPad here. I want to flip through. I want to show you, and I want to be able to get this close enough. There may be a little bit of a glare. It may not show up as much. But these are some of the finishes that I was showing you. These are from my phone in New Orleans. And so I'm wanting to take you back, and I'm going to break down today. Today's more of a lesson. It's more of a workshop. And I'm putting my teacher hat on because I'm going to kind of walk you through how to be able to recreate this finish. Isn't this awesome? T and I are both just, we were holding with our breath just a little bit. Is this thing going to work? So we're excited to be on Instagram and Facebook at the same time. It's very exciting. All right, so let's look at this finish. Can you see that? This is off of an armoire that I saw in New Orleans. Look at the color. You're going to see, I love that, Tracy. You got me a Crusty. So look at the light gray, look at the striping, and look how we go into the darker gray values. Do you see that? It's a modeling effect. Now, here's the deal. Those of you that have been in the world of using chalk-based paints, there's a lot of chalk-based paints out. And there's a lot of great ones. But here's the deal. We're not going to be able to get a variation of finish to be able to get the depth that we're wanting unless we're putting glazes and waxes on top of like the one step or a particular chalk-based paint that you use. What I'm going to show you today is how to be able to layer things that go together to be able to create very authentic looking 17th and 18th century type finishes that we're seeing. All right, so here's a close-up. Can you see this? Here's a close-up on a piece of furniture that I saw in an antique shop on magazine. What is it that you see? Now there's another, I want you to see the depth. Do you see a light color gray? You see a darker color value gray? You see a little white? If you can get to the point to where you are starting to dissect finishes, it's going to allow you to have a better understanding on how to execute it. All right, so now I'm going to flip over. This is the one I'm going to kind of park on. Hold on just a second, because this is what I want you to see. All right. All right, so now let's look at this. Let me blow this up. So, do you see the finish? Do you see the white, the gray, the overglazing? Do you see that stain kind of showing through? So now I'm going to walk you through the breakdown. What's one of the things when you look at those finishes? What are you noticing right off the bat? One, it's a very dead, flat, matte finish. We're going to apply the wax on top of it, but we're not going to buff it. That's very, very important. This is how they're things that are a little bit different than I'm showing you today. So we're going for this very textured, crusty, dead flat matte finish. So it's matte, flat, it's textured, it's chippy, and there's several colors, the variations. So when you're looking at a finish, you've got to start to dissect it. And when you think about what's the color, what's the smallest color that you see as a rule, will be the first color, the first application. All right, so now I'm going to walk you through how to do this step by step. Here's the deal. And this may be your first time because we're so excited that we're on Instagram today. It's a little toasty in my studio, so I can tell I'm starting to kind of glisten. Love Matt and Crusty. And it's funny, Linda, you say that. It's like we're all we're all sisters from a different mother. We all get excited over the same thing. And I think that's why I love my group so much, because things like this get us really excited. And I'm grateful that I am married to Jean Howard that gets me. So all right, so I want you to see, can you see this? It's hard to kind of see the depth, and I'm going to hold it so you can see it. Look at this. The softness of this finish, but also the depth of it. This is so much like the antiques we were looking at, and it's so easy to recreate. All right, so now, T, come over here. T's going to help me. I'm going to switch this. I have to switch my camera so you can go down. All right, come on, girl, let's do this. All right, so hang with me. So we're going to turn our camera around. It's our first time doing this, so y'all are awesome to be so patient. All right. Let's see. Hang with us. There we go. Boom. Good job, T. All right. So let's look at this finish. It's kind of got a lot of light on this, and it's hard for you to be able to see. I want to turn the light out for just a second because I want you to see the shadows. That's an important element. Look at that. Can you see the depth? All right. So yeah, I almost like it without that light on there, T. I think it's better. So this allows you to be able to see the finish. Look at this. It's so, I'm telling you guys, this is so authentic looking. This is so much, this is so similar to the finishes that I was seeing in New Orleans. It's crazy. All right, so let's walk through how to be able to create this finish. One of the first things you're going to need to do, it's ever so slight, but do you see the wood showing through? That's an important element when you're seeing antiques. You're going to see a little bit of wear of wood. So if we let's start with step one. One of the first things we're going to need to do is, if we're working on raw wood, we're going to have to stain it. Now, if you have an existing piece of furniture that you have that has stain on it, then we're good. You can go directly on top of it. But you do need to do some sanding beforehand if it has a stained finish on it, because I want to lighten up that sealant that would be on it. And so you won't have to do this first step. But what I'm first going to do, I'm going to go on and take my gel stain. Let me put this on here because I want you to see. Some of you may not even know that I have this, but these are gel stains. This is a beautiful color. It's called English Walnut, and it has a viscosity to it that is really easy to use, and it doesn't drip everywhere. It's in a gel state, and it's water-based, and it smells great. All right, so I'm just going to dip my chip brush into my English Walnut stain. And why am I putting this on first? You're like, I thought she was doing a gray painted finish. Part of the reason why I'm doing it is because I want to be able to have the stain finish first. Remember, when we're executing a finish that's been around for a long, long time, that's got a lot of age to it, we are basically taking it through a process of what would have happened over hundreds of years. So that piece would have more than likely have been stained first. So after I apply the stain with my brush, I'm just going to come back, and with a rag, I'm going to wipe off the excess, and I'm going to allow it to dry. The great thing about this gel stain is the fact that it is water-based, and you can use it to put on top of existing pieces if you want to be able to change the color. So now I've got a little bit of a brown color, that would have been used on a piece of furniture that I was working on top of. All right, so now I'm going to go to my second step. So I've got one that I had done earlier. It dried. It's going to dry down matte like this. And again, if you're working on a piece of furniture that already has a stained finish on it, lightly sand and get some of that lacquer off of it. And then that way you can paint directly on top of it. So now I'm going to go in and put on some gloves. There's nothing, there's no VOCs in the products that we're working with today. They're natural. It's like shopping in the grocery aisle. And that's part of the beauty of using the milk paints and the plaster that we're using. So for this next step, we're going to be taking two products. We're going to be working with our Venetian plaster and our Strasbourg white milk paint. Now, if you're just now popping on, please say, hey, tell me where you're tuning in from. And if you share this video on Instagram or Facebook, your name is going to go in for a drawing, and we're going to give away some of the products that I am teaching you today, and I'm going to pay to ship it to you. So we say sharing is caring. So all you have to do is share the video, and then I'm going to have your name in for a drawing that we will draw on Monday afternoon, and we'll ship this product to you, to the lucky winner. All right, so we're going to be mixing Venetian plaster in a powder form with my Strasbourg white. Why am I doing that? One, let's go back to the finish that we're creating. Look at this. I am wanting to have the texture. One of the easiest ways to have this gorgeous dead matte flat finish that's textured and chippy without it looking fake or like this. If you looked at it in person, you'd be like, yeah, that looks old. If I had this on a piece of furniture, you would say, that looks like the real McCoy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up these two products. So I'm going to actually didn't mix it before because I thought I want them to see. When you work with the milk paints, they come in a 12-ounce bag. They're in a lot of different yummy colors, and I try to keep them very authentic as far as historical colors. I'm going to take and do equal parts of plaster to milk paint. So I'm going to do 1 part milk paint to 1 part of my Venetian plaster. Now, I've told my students this, and those of you, if you're just now watching, if you don't know, the ingredients for plaster is very simple. It is lime, calcium carbonate, which is chalk, and marble dust. So this formula has been around for thousands of years, and they all are married. When you look at working with a milk paint and a plaster, it's like it's not like working with oil and vinegar. Like if you're working with a lot of products, unfortunately, that are being made on the market now, they have a lot of synthetics, they have a lot of chemicals, and they don't really work well together. Well, the great thing about the plaster and the milk paint is that they work really, really well together. All right, so now I'm going to go on and add my water to this consistency. It's really good to be able to work with room temperature water, and don't put too much in, because when you're thinking as far as measuring this, as a rule, I will do 1 part water to 1 part powder. Now, when I start adding my plaster, it's going to go a little bit thicker on me. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. So you're going to have to kind of watch it. And this is a lot like cooking. It's about making sure that you get the right consistency, because I don't want the plaster and the milk paint concoction that I'm making up to go too thin. I still want it to be fairly thick. So I'm going to mix this up. As you pop on here, say, hey, tell me where you're tuning in from. If you've never seen me before, my name is Amy Howard, and I am the mother maker here at Amy Howard at Home. I have been doing this longer than I really want to say, because it makes me realize how old I am. But I started doing, actually started doing finishes when I was in my 20s. And so that puts it into doing this a very long time. Hey, Bobby. Hey, Misty. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, guys. So glad you've tuned in today. All right. So now I want you to kind of see the consistency of that. See how it's kind of lumpy? Now, a lot of times I can use an immersion blender. I do not put my milk paint in a blender put it on frappe because I don't want to paint with bubbles. I want to make sure that I try to keep it as smooth as possible. So now I want you to kind of see the consistency of it. Why would I put plaster in this? Why would I mix Venetian plaster into milk paint? Part of the reason why it's going to give me that textured finish that I want. And it's going to also allow me to be able to create kind of a chippiness. So I've got my stained finish. Part of the reason why did I stain it first is because when I go to wear it, I want a little bit of that wood showing through. You're always going to see that on an antique. That's why I'm doing that. I'm recreating a very, very old Italian finish. So now I'm going to take my combination of milk paint and Venetian plaster, and I'm going to paint it directly on top of my sample. A lot of people ask, Amy, why do you paint samples and why aren't you painting furniture for us? Well, here's the deal. Many of you may not know, but I was a furniture manufacturer for over 30 years. And all the designers and the architects that I made furniture for, a lot of celebrities, I would make and create the finish that would go on the furniture. A lot of people don't know, but I was the furniture designer manufacturer for private label for F. Schumacher for over 18 years. And so I was creating and developing very high-end, very sophisticated, very classic finishes to be able to be used on furniture. All right, so now I've got good coverage here. I'm really only concerned with making sure that I get 100% coverage. And I can come back if I want, and I want to pull this or stipple it just a little bit to be able to give just a little bit of texture. I need to allow this to dry down, and it will dry down completely in about 30 minutes. If you want to speed the process up, just use a hair dryer. It won't be a problem at all. All right, so now I did one before I went live today. I'm going to go just a little bit closer. Is that better? Can y'all see that just a little bit better? All right, so now, T, would you turn the light on for me? I want them to make sure that they can see that. All right, so now we're going to go to the next step. So what have we done thus far? We've stained it, or we can work with an existing stained piece, just sand the lacquer or the sealant off. Then we've mixed up Strasbourg white milk paint with our Venetian plaster. Now we're going to do our overglaze. Now, do you remember when I was showing you the pictures of the antique pieces? If you're just now popping on, I was showing them in New Orleans, the pieces of furniture that I found. And I tell you what, let me open that up real quick. Do y'all mind? All right, so let me just show you. Let's look at our piece of antique furniture again. That way, if referring back to it, you want to turn that ring off so that way they can see? Okay. So here we've got our wood that's going to be showing through. See how it's kind of crusty, how it's kind of popped off? You've got varying degrees of your white, your gray. So you see how there, and it may affect the screen just a little bit, but you've got this medium value of gray. That's what I am applying now. This is my Scandinavian milk paint. I will tell you, a lot of people struggle because they're like, I can't get the finishes that I am seeing on antiques. Well, it's because you're not using the same kind of products that they used. I assure you, this piece of furniture with an old finish was painted in a casein paint, which was, or a gouache, but the casein is milk. If you look on the back of your yogurt, you'll see that casein is milk and it shows up as the ingredient. So this allows me to be able to get a really authentic finish like that. So now I'm going to mix up 1 part Scandinavian gray milk paint to 1 part water. So that is what I mixed up before I went live. I just wanted to make sure that it got mixed up really well. I will tell you, because it doesn't have all the synthetics in it, with your milk paint, it's going to have a tendency to kind of settle down to the bottom a little bit. And so as you're working with the milk paint, you just agitate it a little bit, either with your artist brush or with your spoon. So you see, I'm trying to get that stirred around again. And now I'm just going to take a chip brush. Now, do brushes make a difference? Yes, they do. I'm getting ready to show you something too, where I'm going to switch over to a synthetic brush, but I am using my chip brushes. I always do chip brushes, natural bristle, when I am painting with milk paint. All right, so I'm going to go in and dip it in here. Now you'll notice it's not real thick. This is another thing that I want to make sure that you start to understand. Look how runny that is. Look how thin that is. It kind of goes against the grain of what you're thinking um, paint should be like. But you're creating something very special and very different. So Bobby, I love your question. How long again do we have with the milk paint when it's mixed? I mean, I can work with it like this for days. I can use it in a jar like this. I'll agitate it with my brush. It'll keep it all stirred up and yummy. If you want to put it in the refrigerator, if you're going to work on your project longer than that, it's going to be good in the refrigerator for about 2 weeks. That's why it's in a powder form and you just mix up basically what you want at the time. All right, so now I'm going to come on top of my plaster and Strasbourg white mixture. And guess what? I'm not going to put the same thickness everywhere. I want to be able to have some of it a little darker, some of it a little lighter, so I can start to move this around, and I'm going to model it. Now I can't talk as much when I start creating like this. I'm going to come back with an artist brush. I'm going to get down in here. Here's something that you want to make sure that you watch out for when you start working with the milk paint and you're putting it on top of a plaster milk paint finish. What's going to happen? It's going to become very absorbent. So we've got to make sure, one, that we're working fast and that I've got a rag beside me. So that way I can pull some off. I can mist it. I can pull it away and I can get a little bit of texture. Here's the other thing. No two pieces are ever going to be the same. That was part of the problem that we ran into when we were manufacturing furniture, because a lot of our clients would say, well, I want to be able to have two commodes. Well, of course they would go together, but the problem was we would have people that would order furniture and they would order one commode and then they'd say 10 years later they wanted to order another piece and they wanted it to match. There's no way you can do that. All right, so I'm going to hold this up in just a second. I want you to be able to see. So again, what am I doing? This is our third step. This is my Scandinavian gray milk paint, mixed 1 part water to 1 part paint. And I am applying it on top of my plaster Strasbourg mixture. And so the sad thing is the contrast affects me just a little bit on this camera. So I'm going to come back and soften it just a little bit. Guys, as you pop on here, please tell me hello, where you're tuning in from, if you've ever seen me before, or if you're familiar with Amy Howard at Home. And be sure, if you share this video and tag some good friends that love to create beautiful things, your name will go on for a drawing, and then we'll be announcing the winner on Monday. All right, so now I'm going to dry this really quickly. I want you to see, once the milk paint starts to dry, how it is going to change in color. So bear with me. See how it's starting to even up? Those darker colors, now we're going to have more medium values. Look at that. See how it's starting to even up? Got one little spot right here that's kind of dark. I know that it's still wet. Christine. You're so sweet. Thank you. All right. So I do want y'all to know, or the gesso. Okay. Oh, such a great question, Jad. Is it? No, Jody. Sorry. So Jody's question was, what would be the difference between using the gesso, the cracked gesso, or the plaster? We're recreating the finish that I saw in New Orleans. It didn't have a crack. I'm wanting texture. I'm needing it to be chippy. So adding the plaster to my milk paint together and not layering them, they are compatible products, and it allows me to be able to get this beautiful dead matte, crusty textured finish. It's absolutely fabulous. Look at that. Look. So now, y'all are the best. All right, so now what are we going to do? I'm going to come back just a little bit. Now, I don't know if you've noticed something. See how the wood is starting to show up? When we come back to wax this a little bit, that's actually going to show up even more. That was that first application. Now, if you want to, you can come back. I say be very careful with this, because I don't want your finishes to look sanded and worn, because that can make it look not authentic. But if you have areas that you want to be able to just kind of pull out a little bit of wood, or you want to pull out a little bit of the plaster to lighten it, you can come back with some very fine sandpaper. Or I'll tell you, you know what else I use? It's hard to get them a lot of times now because they've gone to plastic, but I use grocery sacks. I will use a wood grocery sack and tear it up in little sheets, and that acts as a really fine sandpaper. All right, so now the next thing I want you to see, I'm going to be taking a synthetic brush. There's a difference. This is a natural chip brush, and this is a 2.5-inch synthetic brush. Look at the bristles. See how much softer? Look how soft these are. Look how dense these are. Why would I transition over to a synthetic brush? It's because it's stiffer, and it's going to allow me to be able to do fly specks on this. So now I'm going to take my Scandinavian gray milk paint that I mixed up and painted on, and I'm going to dip my synthetic brush into this. Now, here's what's really important. I'm going to really saturate a lot of this. I'm going to offload it. I'm going to pounce on it, because I only want very little left. I'm also going to test it before I actually do it on my piece of furniture. So I'm going to take from the base here, and I'm going to pull it up. And I want to see what my fly specks are going to be like. I'm going to put this down just a little bit more so you can see. Can you see these little marks? These are actually fly specks. Years ago, if you look at furniture and the oxidation process that it goes through hundreds and hundreds of years, little bugs and insects will leave droppings on the furniture. And so they're called fly specking. If you do the fly specking on finishes like this, it's going to make it look so much more authentic, and it's so easy to do. So now, what did I do again? I'm just going to dip my synthetic brush. It has to be a real stiff brush down into the same milk paint that I painted. Offload it. Make sure you don't have too much. And now I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to move it. Don't leave it in one place. So move it as you pull it. So that way we're getting these little fly speck marks. Now, don't overdo it. You're going to have it in a lot of different sizes. Can you see that? Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to come back, and I'm going to dab these bigger ones. I'm going to dab with a lint-free rag. And if I overdo it, I don't stress out. What do? I just sand them off. So I'm going to, all right, so let's dry that down. If you go look at any true antique, you're going to see this fly specking. Can you see? All right. So again, if you asking your questions and things on here, if I don't get frustrated while I'm live, if I don't see it, because I will go back and I will answer these. All right. So now let's go through what we've done. We've stained it. One. We mixed our Strasbourg white with plaster. We painted that on. That gave us our texture. Then we did our Scandinavian gray milk paint. We applied that, allowed that to kind of come on top of our plaster Strasbourg white mixture. Now we are going to come back with just a little bit of Strasbourg on top of it. Now, this is an option. You're like, I like it just the way it is. Well, that's great. But if I go back to the piece that I showed you, it had a little bit of white on it. So I'm going to come back and add my Strasbourg and my milk paint, my Strasbourg milk paint and my plaster mixture kind of here and there. Now, I'm not, what are you noticing? I'm not covering everything. I just want a little bit on here. Now let's try it. If you pop on here, please be sure and tell me where you're tuning in from. And don't forget, our product code today is FB Live 67. And all the products that I'm working with, you can use that code FB Live, Facebook Live, FB Live 67, and get any of the products 20% off. All right, so now what I'm doing, I'm coming back and I am lightly sanding through that white that I applied to just kind of cut that, bring back a little bit of that gray. This is ever so soft because I am not, when I talk about authentic type finishes, I am not I'm not a sander. But I'm trying to recreate the finish that I saw in New Orleans. All right, so now let's get our excess off. Now I'm going to come back. I'm just going to tell you, if you've never worked with this product before, my matte sealer, whether it's on art, whether it's on furniture, any sealer that you use, it's like it's got a gloss to it. And it has to, it in some way it creates, let me see. I lost, how do I go back? Here we go. All right. So it also makes it impervious to really being able to absorb the product. The matte sealer is one of the best products that you can work with. It's great for art, it's great for furniture, and it is totally dead matte as a sealer. Because why would I use a sealer? Milk paint, if we don't make sure that it is sealed, it will continue to just kind of wear off. We either have to seal it with wax or we're going to have to seal it with a matte sealer. So you have options. Part of the beauty of working with the matte sealer is that I can apply it and it's going to seal my fly specking, everything there together. I can see it applying it, but it's not going to affect my finish at all. I want you to see this. So as I put on the matte sealer, I'm going to hit it with a hair dryer. Now what's happening? Did you notice the gray came back out again, which is what I wanted. We're almost there. Now, here's the other thing that I want you to realize today as we go into the home stretch on this. We're going to be working with my light antique wax. This light antique wax has carnauba in it, and that's part of the reason for this color. It really allows me to be able to add a little bit of color to the pieces that I'm working on, which is very desirable. And it has carnauba in it, which the longer it's on, the harder it gets and the more protection it is on your furniture. So I'm going to offload this. Now, I want you to go very, very light with this. I don't want you to load this up because you're going to do a technique that I want you to see. So as I applied that, you saw that I was very careful. It's very greasy, even though it is really hot in my studio. I'm going to dab that just a little bit. And here's something that I've always told you don't do, but I'm telling you differently and why. Don't let this dry, because I want to be able to take the dust of ages and I want to mix this into my milk paint and my wax. So I'm going to take a little bit of dust. Every layer. The only way you're going to get really authentic looking finishes is you've got to layer things. It's impossible not. And I'm so sorry for going long today. I'm breaking all my rules. But this is all about creating a beautiful finish that you saw in New Orleans. But here's something else. I am not going to buff this. Did y'all hear me? Don't buff it. Because what was the beauty again on that finish? It was the fact that it was flat matte. Now, I did one that I had finished yesterday when I came in the studio and I was working. I want you to see the finish. Now, there's a light, there's a little bit of contrast. Can you turn that light? I want them to see. Look at that. It's absolutely stunning. I'm telling you, for you to be able to put this onto a mirror that you see, if you go to an estate sale, if you go to a garage sale, if you go to Restore, you can recreate this finish and it will be absolutely fabulous. This can go on the most sophisticated wallpaper. This can go on a chest of drawers. This can go on nightstands. You can put this on a bed. It is a $1 million finish. So share this video, tag some good friends that love to create, as we say, craft a beautiful life, because they are going to love you that you shared this finish with them. And I'm just so grateful that I have such a wonderful audience that wants to be able to learn how to do these. I'll go back and I'll answer your questions. So ask me questions, but share the video and take advantage of the Facebook Live 67 code and get all the products that I showed you today at a discount through Monday. I love you guys. Thanks so much for watching.